I don't think he can hear us. Okay, there we go. I think he's recording. Okay, welcome guys. Today we have Rabel here from USAA. He's also a professor at UTSA, kind of talk about his path as an actuary and his path to passing all of his actuarial exams and finishing those. And we're also going to have a coaching actuary session, just tutorial at the very end, I think last 15 minutes. But today's session is really open. It's up to kind of y'all to ask questions, any questions that you have about either, you know, anything about becoming an actuary or specifically about his path to being, you know, completing all of his exams. So thank you for being here, Ray. Just, and I'm gonna kind of start off with the first question, just in case, you know, so everybody's shy to come up with a question, but my question for you, I think, is what was the hardest part? You know, I know like the exams are challenging, but aside from the content itself, but what was the hardest part within that process of getting all of your exams in the fellowship?
That's a good question. I'm not sure what the hardest part is, but I'll say a few hard impediments that I had. The first one, especially as I got to the later exams, was hard incorporating and maintaining that balance between the exams and social life.
Yes.
I want to dive into that just a little bit on what I mean by that. It's these exams at the feature part, you do have to study for, I would say, like 300 to 400 hours, maybe a little bit more for some of them. There's one exam 6 that's basically a straight memory test over a text about this big. And
wow.
They've literally asked like a footnote type question on there where it's one of those, if you memorized it and you understand it, it's I don't want to say it's an easy exam, but you're going to get pretty close to that pass mark just by doing that. So that one took me 3 attempts to pass. So that second time, I was reviewing material that I already knew, and or at least I felt I knew, and I didn't pass it. So then the third time, I gotta say that was really tough. Still devoting all of those hundreds of hours instead of, because at that point I'm thinking I would have studied for about a year and a half at that point, and I'm missing out on maybe some family functions, maybe some happy hours, whatever it is. There's just a lot of minor things that I felt added up over time. And that's why I feel like it's important now to practice that balance, even with in college. I think working or doing school remote is kind of a great opportunity for that too. You're able to figure out when do you need to log in for your classes. I know some are like mine right now are like asynchronous, and then Victor's dialed in right now. So he's finding that balance with class and maintaining the club. So I think it's just important to practice that now, because it is going to get, and that is something that is definitely a challenge. And I know for a lot of coworkers, I have not faced this, but coworkers have a hard time balancing that too with families, where they have work and then studying and then a family. And when they're on those last few exams, it's hard to kind of keep that momentum going. So once you pass so many exams, you achieve your associateship, and then there's 3 exams left for a fellowship. And those 3 fellowship exams, they're not required. So some people tend to stop at the associateship, and especially people like with like a good coworker of mine, Emily, she got married, and the first, she basically had the exam, like I think a week before her wedding. And so that was a stressful time for her. And then finally she got her associateship, but she not missed out on, but wanted to spend more time around the house, wanted to enjoy, go on vacations with her husband without having to worry about studying and committing. So I know for a lot of people like that, it's just finding that right balance. The other hard part I would say is just adapting to the material and the way they're asking each exam. Each exam is worded a little bit differently. So they are like especially the later exams, they're assuming you already know it, that they're assuming that you know the basics. They're asking you kind of at that advanced level. And so it's really how quick can you take that concept and find out the answer. And I feel like on the job, you kind of get some exposure to that too. just as far as thinking in that mindset. But that's really what the exams help for, is how to think creatively, how to think intuitively about the types of problems that are presented.
Thank you for that. So right now, so does anybody have any question they would like to ask? I know I have a list of questions, but please feel free to put them in the chat, put any comments that you have. But anybody got any questions? Going once. Okay, I'll ask another question that I have. So when you, I think I see something. So Paul in the chat says, have you ever felt yourself coasting, and how did you address it?
All the time. I think it's just so easy to feel kind of content in the moment and just gradually going through things. I think it matters just on the type of coasting. Last year was probably the hardest. I was pretty much at UTSA every weekend studying, and I was doubled up on exams last sitting. And I also was taking finishing up my master's, taking 2 classes in the stats program. And I don't want to say this is coasting, but managing that with work, I felt like by September, October, I was in that rhythm where I felt kind of used to it. I felt used to working 40, 50-hour weeks and then studying and completing projects for my courses. So that was a productive coasting. And so that I really want to maintain it. But there's plenty of other times where, it's just very easy to just kind of continue to move on and just get kind of in the habit of studying. And I always make sure that every time I studied, it was productive. So whenever, whether it be, there's sometimes where I just want to do problems. So I'd be like, okay, I've reviewed this paper tons of times. I really don't feel like reading it again. Maybe I just want to do flashcards this time. Let me make my own flashcards. Let me create exam problems. Let me try practice exam. And that practice exam, that's kind of a big thing. I've only done it a handful of times, but every time I've done it, it has helped. If you're studying, pretend if you're studying for an exam for class, or exam P or FM, hopefully. If you just feel kind of coasting through the material and just used to it, would you feel ready taking a practice exam? Would you feel ready sitting down right then and there and doing one? And if the answer is no, then why not? And what areas do you need to focus on? And then that's an easy way of just mentally breaking that cycle. And okay, I need to focus on this section. You know what? I know the material. I need to focus on problems. I need to focus on timing. And that's a good way of breaking the habit. So I would often, there's been a handful of times that I would take a practice exam whenever I felt that I knew it. And if I got a 70 on it, that's actually pretty close to a passing score. But if I felt really good on it, I probably should have scored higher. So finding out where I messed up on, and if anything, it's just a good way of finding out the motivation and confidence boost. Forward.
Thank you. Yes, I think that's a good point in terms of, because I've been studying for FM, and I think given the kind of schedule that I have with classes, I think there can be, or there has been a little bit of just getting used to the same rhythm, but I didn't think that I was gaining more. It wasn't until I started doing practice questions that I was like, okay, there's stuff that I thought I knew, but I didn't. And so thank you for that. Anybody else got a question? Please feel free to ask. And thank you for your question, Paul. It's a good question. And also feel free to unmute yourself if you want to, don't feel like typing. Going once. I'll ask another question in the meantime. But so when you started your exams in college, you're here at UTSA, I was going to ask, what was the most challenging thing? Because I know it's a little bit different when you're working versus when you're in school, but what was, the most challenging part of actually getting started with, taking the exams and going through the process of signing up, and what motivated you through college to keep doing exams before you graduated?
I would say Definitely the most challenging part was I didn't feel there was a resource on campus that could help me answer my questions. There were a couple of professors that had the one-liners, kind of knew more or less, yeah, you have to take exams, pass them. But when you ask any professors about VEEs, nobody knew anything about it. When you asked about what college courses do you need, nobody really knew much. When you asked about which courses help for P or FM, maybe they can say probability and stats, but maybe the exam P prep course, but I never heard that actually really helped reinforce that exam at the time. So really just kind of figuring out all those answers on my own. And I thought it was kind of funny that there's, I think Finance 13 or 14, the Principles of Finance or something, whatever it's called now. That course actually has a lot of the intro stuff for FM, but they wouldn't let me take it unless I passed FM. So I was kind of arguing that why do I need if I'm going to already know the material, like why is that a prerequisite to take in the class? And I did, and I took the class my last semester and thought it was definitely on the lighter side after studying for an actuary exam. But even finding out, I didn't really have a resource in the finance department to ask any of those finance questions. It was really just all the study guides on my own. And then the interviews, I never had, I think I had my parents help me for a couple of those, but just like, just sit down, asking some questions, looking at feedback on it. But that was really the only source I had to kind of prepare for those actual actuary interviews. And as far as speaking to my experience, I was a research assistant for about 1.5 years. So I was able to speak to that a little bit. Well, yeah, I would say not having the resources is probably the biggest impediment for sure.
And what was the biggest motivator through that, having those impediments? What was kind of kept you going? Because I know you passed 3 exams before you graduated, right?
2 things I would say. The first one is competition. I'm very competitive, and I like the fact that a lot of actuaries or a lot of people that taking these exams don't pass them. Sorry, I shouldn't say that I like the fact that people don't pass them, but I like the fact that not everybody can do it, right? It's just like becoming a lawyer, becoming a doctor, just that's not something everybody could do. And I think that it's, as after you pass that first exam, it's just such a motivating feeling that that's your first step towards that career. And that one exam opens up a ton of doors. So now that one exam made me qualified for a ton of positions out there. And then passing that second exam made me a competitive applicant. Passing that third exam made me a very competitive applicant. So that was kind of what helped me, was just that competition piece in the back of my mind, making sure that I wanted to make sure, like, if I interviewed decent and had the background, that any company would love to have me. And the second motivator throughout that, if I'm being honest, would probably say money. So I know that just the compensation for actuaries, especially credentialed actuaries, after 15, 20 years of experience, make a ton. And I just kept thinking, like, daydreaming, oh, that'd be so nice to have that, and then work towards there. And just knowing that this profession can offer that. Not saying other professions don't by any means, not saying that at all, but at least here it was very outlined. You pass your exams, you get credentialed, you move up. It's a natural progression. So I knew that over the course of the next decade or 2, I would naturally get there. Whereas with others, it might not be as clear of a roadmap.
Yes, thank you for that. Yes, does anybody have another question they'd like to ask? Please feel free.
Yeah, I have a question. And it's, so now that you passed all your exams, what's your next step? Is it just to gain more experience in your job, or what would you say?
As far as free time, I'm going to answer that a few different directions. As far as free time goes, I recently, I started building a house last summer. So that finished this February. Last month, a few days right before that storm hit, so perfect timing. And so getting set up, getting moved in, I think I am for the most part, but that's been occupying my time pretty much after that. I've been doing a lot of just kind of picking up a few hobbies. I enjoy watching the stock market. So I took a week off after the exam just to play around with that for a while. Spent time with my family, went out and celebrate, saw some friends. Even with COVID, just I went out and enjoyed everything. It was just such a good relief. The exam results, by the way, didn't come out till like the first week of February. So I was enjoying this time. It's kind of even still in the back of my mind, I might have to sit for another exam. Now I do have I'd say over the next 6 weeks is going to be a little harder on the work side because there's other members of our team that are sitting for exams in April. And it's kind of my chance to quote unquote repay some people when I've sat for exams in the past and they've had to take on some of my additional work. So I'm able to take that time off to study and sit for my exam. So now there's that opportunity where I'm going to be picking up that additional work to make sure that my team doesn't have to go through that same thing. So I wouldn't say it's a ton more work. It's definitely, you feel like you're working a lot more. I'll use USAA as an example. They give you so many hours to study for each exam. So every sitting, I would take off probably 6 to 8 hours a week for a couple months and then take half days before the exam, sometimes take the week of my exam off. Some of that would be mixed in with PTO too. So now that I'm not studying for exams, that's not happening. So I feel like I'm just substituting that with additional work, but also I'm able to, I have that time now to do those additional fun projects. Mm-hmm. I can, something I'm working on right now, just a fun example. So we have an actuarial indication. So that's how much rate do we need to take in a state for a line of business. I'm an auto, so I'll just say auto, let's just say collision coverage. Well, how do we think collision frequency has been changed from the last few years? Or sorry, from last year with 2020 with COVID. How do we think that's going to change in the future? Is that going to be the same for every state? How do you feel about the severity of cost? Some people with the stimulus, are they going to be getting into newer vehicles? If so, that cost of repair is going to be going up. Some businesses that were closed down during the pandemic, that are they now going to be charging higher prices in order to recoup some of that money? So how is that, are we reflecting that in our rates? So one thing I was doing, I've been working on this week actually, was creating a simulation on just plugging in, kind of creating a distribution around how we think all those variables are going to change, and then showing that. Now that's something I've had in the back of my mind for months now, but I just haven't had time. But this week I still don't have time, but I'm making time because that's something I wanted to do. But I would feel that like at night, for instance, like that's something I did last night. Just, I really wanted to jump on and try that out. And it was nice not having to study and do that. It was something just additional I was able to.
Awesome. Thank you for that answer. And thanks for the question, Alex. Anybody else? Feel free to ask.
Yeah, I have a question. Mr. Rabel, as it relates to the number of exams that you would suggest would put you in pole position to be like best suited to enter the entry level position, what number would you put that at?
Oh, sorry, I think I missed the first part of that. Is it just the number of exams you need to be?
Yeah, I was just asking, how many exams do you think you need to pass before you graduate from university to put you in the pole position to land that entry level job?
I think that depends with a lot of other factors. So keep in mind that, sorry, I don't want to give a political answer. I will say 2. And now let me go back and mention that why. There's a lot of, if you think about other universities and candidates graduating from them and applying, they're coming with probably 2 or 3 exams, and some people even with an internship. And that's making them a very strong applicant. If you think about all else being equal, right? Somebody has 2 exams for an internship, someone has 2 exams by itself. Internship's probably going to show that they can actually do the work. So I think an internship is very valuable and probably adds an exam to that. So if you have 1 exam, an internship, and a 4.0 GPA, took on some extra projects, really good coding skills, I personally think you'd be a good candidate, at least to get an interview. I don't think that would be some companies do look at, okay, you've only passed one exam. These are tough exams. Like, do they have confidence in you to continue doing that? And that's where I think all of these additional items help with that. You intern so you can do the work. Maybe you did some other groups. You have this coding knowledge. If you're very well-rounded, then they know if you set your mind to something, you can do that. So that's going to give them more confidence in you passing those future exams and more willing to take a chance on you for that. If you have 2 exams or 3 exams, now they know, okay, this candidate is good to go. They're capable of passing these few. It's not by luck. I would say even the timing between exams is important. If you pass exam P, the first one, but you took it a year ago, then employers are going to view that as, why don't you have a second one? Have you been attempting it and just not been able to pass it? And they'll ask you that too, because they want to know. Has it been, you've been maybe doing a few jobs, like an internship, and you just didn't want to overload yourself, maybe 19, 18 hours a semester. So they are going to be looking for that, because again, like their biggest thing is they want to know, are you capable of passing exams? I think 2, with some good, I think 1 will get your foot in the door and just be qualified. I think 2 or 3 will make you very competitive. I'd love to say everybody passed 3, but I mean, these are tough exams, and like, so I want to make sure that part stays there. But I think 2 is a realistic goal. And then 3 would be great. And then that's something where if you can ideally do that early on, like by the end of when you start your junior year, if you could take P, you're good to go. And then your second semester, take FM, you're good to go. And then that summer, try to intern somewhere. And if you don't, that's okay. But then start that 3rd exam. And then that way, when you graduate, you can say, because if you took that 3rd exam, let's just say over the summer, and then your first semester, your senior year, now you have 3 exams on your resume. So when you start applying, you have those exams that you can attest to and say, I've already taken and passed these. So rather than I'm taking 2, I've passed 2, but I'm still on my 3rd one. So there is a little bit of a difference there. But again, it comes down to kind of everything else. I like to think that the exams, the interview, that my 2 cents, I don't think anybody cares about a resume anymore. It matters 100% on your experience and how well you interview. So like I said, if you can get your foot in the door, even with 1 exam, and so, like, just matters on how well you sell yourself with all the rest of the skills, then after that, it's going to be all the interview. If they ask you, why have you only sat for 1? And if you have a good reason, then they're going to be okay with that. If you say you've studied for 2, the second one, had to take a break for some reason, and like, as long as you're able to explain it, because that's another skill set that they're looking for in actuaries. I mean, they're looking for, like my boss likes to say, we want to hire the future leaders of the company, not analysts, but leaders. So during those interviews, what are they demonstrating those leadership qualities? Are they always moving forward? Are they growing? Are they able to articulate things well and communicate effectively? Those are the things that really come into play. So, but I do think 2 exams, like, obviously they're not taking everybody and interviewing everybody who goes there. That's why I think the 1 exam with all this other stuff is probably a good, I wouldn't say average, but maybe average. And then 2 exams will put you slightly above that average. And then 3 will make you extremely competitive. And also I wanted to kind of outline too, we have a lot of people from Drake University. And that's actually one of the motivations why I wanted to start teaching at UTSA. So at Drake, they have a kind of a very well-rounded actuarial program there. They basically have courses over the first however many exams. They have hundreds of students in this program. They make sure everybody knows exactly what the expectations are coming on. People typically graduate there with a handful of exams. So coming from UTSA, that's the competition. That's where we need to start competing. You're competing against those people, those applicants during these jobs.
Thank you. Thank you for the answer and the question as well. Anybody else, anything to add, to ask? There's a question in the chat says, what were your study habits like? Was it a daily thing? How much time did you spend for each study session, etc.?
I'm going to preface this with it varied. So this last sitting, I'm going to start with this last sitting and then I'm going to go back to the earlier exams. So the fellowship exams are offered once a year. I was doubling up for 2 of them last spring, which means if I failed one, I had to wait an entire year to take that one again. I did not want to fail again. One of those I sat for my first time. The other one was my 3rd attempt. And I wanted to make sure that I did not fail those. So I thought about what was every possible thing I could do. Read all the source text, do every single problem, do every flashcard, memorize every single note, watch videos 1,000 times, do every practice exam. Anything you can think of, I did. And I made sure to do that. Now, I think for those 2 exams, because the exams did get pushed, by the way, till last fall. And I think I sat for one in November, the other in December. But all of last year, I probably studied about, on average, a ballpark number, probably 1,300 or 1,400 hours. So that's about, give or take, 1,000 hours a month, which is okay. Yeah, no, I think that, sorry, 100 hours a month. 100 hours a month, more or less. And that was, I mean, I did study for quite a bit. Like on the weekends, I would put in about 16 to 20 hours, sometimes more than that, studying that material. I found with the prior exams that I can't study for 1 or 2 hours. I feel very rushed. I think of it like, imagine going for a run, but you're confined to 20 minutes. And you're training. You need 20 minutes there. So maybe you can start with a 20-minute run and then do a 30 and then do a 40 and then an hour and slowly increment there. And that was the approach I took on other exams, because your brain is like a muscle. You need to train and you need to increment to get there. So on other exams, I would actually study just do one paper for an hour. And then the next time I'd study for 2 hours and I'd spend an hour reviewing and then another hour something else. And then the next day I'd do 3 hours. Now it's slowly incrementing to get there over time. So my study habits were typically to start early on, slowly incrementing, and then build up to where like halfway through the exam time, I'm able to study for a good amount and then just try to hold that going forward. I did try to study, I don't know about every day though. I would say like the weekends are probably my main point. Again, it all came down to a balance. For me during the week, I would try to work. There have been times where I may have to work or do school during the week, and it was hard cramming all of that into 1 day or 2 days. And I just couldn't get on a good routine. So I decided, you know what, I'm gonna take Fridays off of work. I'm gonna kill it at work and teaching Monday through Thursday. And then Friday through Sunday, those are the 3 days that I'll study. So now this last sitting, what I learned was I don't want to ramp up. That first day I studied, I think I did like 8 to 10 hours. So instead of that, I started that because I've reviewed that material already twice for 2 other sittings. So that's when I was like, you know what, let me just start. And I covered 3 of the 16 papers. And I was happy. That was a great motivation. That was a great confidence boost going forward. And then I started studying for the other exam. It started off with market, very interesting stuff. So I didn't have to force myself to study. It was nice just moving through that. But with the earlier exams, I want to say like I started studying kind of with, I did start doing that after work, but I just found multiple sittings that it was hard to maintain a balance. Yeah, my suggestions to you guys is do what feels right. Like imagine like think back to the last 2 or 3 weeks. How look like? Do you have time to add something into that mix without distorting your schedule? Maybe like going for a run and going to the gym in the morning. Maybe you're kind of all over the place in every area, and maybe that does work. Yeah. So I see the second question on here. How do you keep motivation high through the preparation and studying for exam? That is really tough. I gotta say, there's always those days, right? You just don't feel motivated. You don't feel like you want to study. You feel like just calling it quits. And I forced myself to do something every time I wanted to study. So if I said on Friday, I want to study, and then I get there, I'm tired, I'm sleepy, coffee isn't helping, and I pull out my notes and I just don't feel like learning something new. I may not feel like doing problems. I'm going to think about, again, what was everything I had to do and do one of those items. And as long as it was one step closer, then I felt good. And because I'm sure you guys feel this way, right? Like even getting up in the morning, you just want to sleep in. But what if you just get up? I get up to take my dog out for a walk. And I tell myself, let me just do that. Well, by the time I'm done with the walk, I'm a little bit more awake. Like, all right, let me make breakfast. Now I'm a little bit more awake. Let me grab a shower. Now I'm very awake. So it just takes that one thing to start the day off, right? And same thing with studying. Sometimes you just need to start it, right? And for me, that's when it was, I don't care if it's flashcards. I don't care if it's lying down and going through all my notes in my head. If I wanted to close my eyes, then I would just do that. And I would go through that line by line in my head. It was scary. I actually didn't know both my exam materials, like every page from front to back. But I would just make sure to always do something. And then that does help you stay motivated. And then also remember, why are you interested in being an actuary? Why are you going down this career path? I know I said before, kind of the money aspect is a motivator. To dive into that a little bit more though, I mean, the reason why is financial security. I know that the lifestyle I wanted to provide for myself, and when I settle down and have a family, that's enough to take care of them. That is enough to have that life that I wanted. So to not have to be able to provide for my family and then be able to just afford good things. So that was always my motivation. And every time I didn't feel like studying, I mean, I would always think about that, like that's the end goal. That's what you're working towards. Just like in school right now, you may not want to do a homework assignment. Well, I mean, what is that? What's the homework assignment going to get you? It's going to get you that one grade for that one class and that one letter grade that's going to raise your GPA up just a little bit higher. And that's going to let you do a job making money. So it's always just that end goal. Here's what you're working towards. And it's nice. I don't know if you guys like a checklist type item, but what if you had the number of homework assignments you were going to complete before you graduate? I personally find relief just checking that off one at a time. And then just seeing that progress, especially. So I would always just keep in mind that end goal. And especially when the exam time comes, a big motivating factor is, especially on my third attempts, was I do not want to sit for this again. I've put in a lot of hours, and can you imagine like it being April, and then you have to get a 95 or better on the final, otherwise you have to take the course again. You've spent all this time doing homework, quizzes, exams. You do not want to take that course again. You want to study and make sure you can get that. And that's so that was always in the back of my mind too, is that I do not want to do this again. So if I have to sacrifice, I'd much rather sacrifice 2 weekends of missing out on family functions than having to sit through this another few months. All right, and then I see one from Wesley. Can you tell us what a typical day looks like working on a project at work? I'm going to give a few different roles on this. So my current role, I'm a regional actuary for our auto pricing unit. So I am over right now about 11 states and I'm responsible for our pricing strategy. So very high level, what is our rate need in each state? When are we actually going to implement that rate need? How are we going to take rate? Is it just raise everybody's rates? Are we going to target it? Maybe like younger drivers pay more, maybe certain vehicles pay more, people with certain deductibles limits pay more. So making sure I'm communicating that, finding a resource that can work on that filing, and then monitoring my states. So what's going on if we just had a review go into effect? How is that actually playing out? Are those results that we expected? If we're going to raise rates, that's going to lower our retention. If so, by how much? That's questions that are unit answers. And then once that goes into effect, is that within our expectation? And if not, finding out why. So that's very high level what I do. So a typical day is making sure, just looking through all my states, kind of staying on top of emails on new initiatives, making sure that I'm staying up to date on any competitor information that comes out, any product results that comes out, making sure that if we are going through a filing, are we on track? What analysis do I need to review? Because there's people like just right out of college that are going to be working on these filings, and you're probably not going to. I remember I didn't know what I was doing. I was thinking, okay, how exactly am I going to take rates? It was but I just reading through that proc plan and then making sure that whoever's reviewing my work, like they knew what I did. So like now that I'm on the other side of that coin, where I want to make sure I know exactly what that analyst is doing, and I'm able to review it effectively, and also communicate why we're doing things a certain way. So I work with a lot of analysts from, I'd say half a year of experience to 4 or 5 years of experience, where are we doing things the right way, challenging, questioning assumptions. One thing I love doing is questioning everything. So why are we doing it this way? That's my favorite thing to ask. And if there's not a reason, then okay, we're gonna change it, and not being afraid to push back on that either. Now, from an analyst perspective, from like a new hire entry level position, I'd say the first few months they're going to spend kind of going through training, making sure they're up to date on all the actuarial techniques, making sure you're proficient in understanding like how do we actually take premium and on level it. So if you think about premium from like a few years ago, that's not the same premium level we have now, because if the company implemented a rate change, that premium of $100 is not at the current rates. So how would you actually rate on that? And how is it trending over time? Looking at your losses. There's a lot of foundational actuarial concepts that are necessary that everybody goes from when they start. And then they start working on filings, and then just over time, they start taking on all these different projects. So to get back to the question of a specific day, there's not really a typical day. It's kind of, at least in many companies that I'm aware of and departments, it's pretty much not whatever you want to work on, but you won't be biting your nails at the desk. Like there's going to be plenty of items to work on, and it's kind of, okay, I got this item due in 2 weeks, this item due in 3 weeks, this item due in a month, and let's just say each one takes half the week to do. Well, maybe you know what, I haven't coded in SQL. Let me do the one that's due a month from now, even though that's not the one that's due next week, but this one I can practice some SQL skills. And then that's something that gives me an opportunity to learn. And and I'd say the kind of the fun part of the job is that there's plenty of opportunities to always learn something new. And that's so when people say a typical day, I would say a typical day is learning something new, just always trying to find one thing and learn something different. And the actual profession definitely gives a ton of opportunities for that, whether it be with coding, with analysis, with presentations, with like something a lot of people do is once they go through their analysis, they will actually present it to our business partners. So that's something I'm going to review, making sure all the slides look good, have them go through a dry run. Then we're going to present to our state management partners, present to our pricing partners, maybe present to their bosses, and making sure that they can articulate that correctly. So there's a lot of preparation that goes into that. So how many years was it from passing your first exam to the last one? So I passed my first exam P, in May 2013, and then I passed these last two in November, December of 2020. So about 7.5 years. And I want to say I don't want to say it's an average time, but I want to say most people it'll take between like 7 and 10. Again, remember, like there's no one size fits all. If you live by yourself, unmarried, no kids, in a city by yourself, families away, you're probably going to go through them a little bit quicker, at least the first few. If you have more that were completed in college, right, you're probably going to have, like, I know a few coworkers that have passed everyone on their first try, and then that took them, I think, 5 years. So props for them. They did a great job with those. But other people, especially when you get to the fellowship ones, like I said before, if you fail one, it actually takes a year until you can sit for it again. So that's something else that really slows down that passing rate.
Awesome. We still have 2 minutes before the coaching actuary session. Does anybody have any other question they would like to ask?
Yeah, how important do you think GPA is though? Because I've heard that having a GPA of around 3.3 and having more exams than compared to someone who has a 4.0 and less exams is more beneficial. What do you have to say about that?
I would say this goes back to my comment from earlier on. It matters on the whole package. If all else being equal, my 2 cents, an employer is not going to care if you have a 3.3 or 3.5. They're not. If you both have the same exam, same experience, same qualifications. So I wouldn't stress out about that too much. I think the wider the range, right, like a 3.1 versus a 3.9, that is a little bit of a difference. But again, that's only on your resume. Once you get the interview, that resume doesn't matter anymore, at least in my opinion. That they're focused solely, how are you interviewing? How are you carrying yourself? Are you fitting the criteria that you need to work at the company? I would say that like the exams and the internships definitely counts a ton more and give more weight than the GPA. I would say at minimum I think a 3.3 is a good amount. That shows that you're actually making a good amount of A's too, as well as B's. And I think if you pass all the exams, like if you got 3 exams, but you had like a 2.7, I'm not sure if that'd be a tough one for an employer. If anything, I think that'd be intriguing enough for an interview, but that might be something that potentially hold you back. Just because again, that comes down to the balancing act between exams versus that. So I think that's something to be looking more towards. But yeah, go for the range, not necessarily the exact point.
Awesome. Thank you for that question and the answer. And we're a little bit out of time, but thank you so much, Ray, for taking time out of your evening to kind of come and speak to us. I know you've spoken to our club multiple times now, so I think most people recognize you now. But thank you so much. And if you have any questions, is it okay if I put your email in the chat later on for anybody that has any other questions? Or sure. If you could do that, thank you. But yes, so I'm gonna just open up the pages here so I can start the other session. But thank you for that. And
I had a UTSA email. Yes, either one, okay. But yeah, preferably the second. Well, thanks for having me, guys.
All right, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you everybody for joining. I'm gonna start sharing my screen, so learn about coaching actuaries, and let me know if you need any of the codes. But let me actually I'm gonna open up. How do I hide this? There we go.
And real quick, while you're opening that up, I will say I did use coaching actuaries for a few exams. I do find it very helpful and encourage everybody to use it if you can. This really helped me out with, I want to say probably like 3 of my exams at the time. It was very, very helpful when I found out.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank you so much. So hopefully y'all can can y'all see this?
Yeah, we can see it. I'm out of class now, so I'm here.
Okay, good. I was trying to make sure because I hit the panel and then everything was gone. So this is the website. If you go to coachingactuaries.com, what Coaching Actuaries is, they're a company that offer exam kind of prep materials. And so if you go on their website, they have some useful resources. So how to pass, some kind of, they tell you what they offer you as well, like within, their manuals and their practice problems. And they also tell you the exams that they offer in terms of materials for. And so I've used Coaching Actuaries for exam P, and I passed P last summer, and I'm studying for FM using Coaching Actuaries right now. And I'm going to be sitting for it in about a month. So in April, mid-April. So to actually show you what it actually looks like in Coaching Actuaries. So this is, when you get your subscription, this is what it looks like. and takes you to the home. And this is with the full subscription where you get the manual as well as adapt. And so in learn, these are kind of just the topics that you will be going over. So, you know, this is for FM. So interest measurement is the first one. It shows you kind of the topic itself, the different sections within the topic. And within each section, there's videos. So you can actually click on, oh, this is not the video, but this is the manual. So you can, if you like to read more than watch videos, I like to read more than watch videos. You could do that. Then you can watch these really awesome videos that they have about, you know, they usually have the content and they go through everything. At the end of each section, they usually have a summary page, which kind of summarizes everything within the that section. They also have, I think, if you go at the very front, you can also see their own summary sheet. So they actually give you a formula sheet that you can use. And that's the one that I use. I kind of build mine off of theirs. And so for FM, you can see all these topics. They don't necessarily have practice problems underneath these sessions. They usually have a short quiz at the end of each section, but they're not very hard kind of quizzes. They're just, you know, checking for your understanding. And then at the very end, they also have review videos. So if there's a topic that you went over a couple of months ago and you just want to watch a quick video that goes over everything really quickly, so they have these for each of the topics and the sections for each one of those. And so I've gone through most of these, and I think the ones that I skipped, I think I feel like I understand a little bit more. But so this is if you get the manual, this is all that you get for that as well. They also have, you know, in the appendix, they'll have kind of some derivations for formulas. So there's some formulas that you don't necessarily need to understand the derivation for and need to know the derivation for, but they'll still offer those here. So if you're more comfortable doing that than just memorizing a formula. They also have calculator notes. So if you don't know how to use a specific calculator, this exam does use a specific financial calculator. So if you've never used one of those before, they do have kind of videos and notes on how to use them. So that's very helpful as well. Any prerequisites, like this one doesn't have that many prerequisites. Like you might have to take an integral, maybe and maybe a derivative once, some algebra, but not very taxing on those. It's very different from P, where those are definitely hard prerequisites for you to have. And so other than that, the other major section that I have been using like lately has been adapt. And so adapt is essentially, let me see, just make sure there's nothing in chat, but it's essentially the platform that you use to do practice problems. And so in my study process, I start doing this as soon as I finish a section. I start doing practice problems on this on the section, so interest measurement. And it tracks how many questions you get right. And so this is like, it even gives you a little graph of over the, you know, past couple of days, how has your rate been. And also, let me actually do this. So if you build a quiz, you can actually specify how hard you want that quiz to be, depending on what level you're at and how many questions. I think the maximum you can do per quiz is 10 questions. You can also specify if you want to do just the questions you've missed per section, as well as if you want just questions that have been actually released by the Society of Actuaries, SOA, and the Casualty Association of Actuaries. Casualty Actuarial. Sorry. So yes, so you can either do those. I usually do miss questions, revisit them during the weekends. So that's usually my plan of action. And I usually don't specify which ones I want, because you get a really good mix of both in there, of coaching actuaries questions and SOA questions. But so far, like, let me know if you have any questions so far, and if there's anything you specifically like to see. The one thing that coaching actuaries, I think, is famous for is their earned levels. So when you take a practice exam using coaching actuaries, it has a specific difficulty set for that exam. And so depending on how you score in that exam. I think if you score more than a 70, your earned level goes up, and the next practice exam you take is harder. And so I think you start pretty at a very, very low earned level. And I think, so it says right here, 7 is exam ready. And so once you get to past 7, you're pretty ready, since I think most people say that the actual exams for at least FMNP, the earned level is about between a 4 and a 5. And so if you can get to a 7, then you're definitely exam ready. And so like you can actually see the history of all the exams you've taken. And so starting, I think 3.1, and then right now I'm at a 5.6 something, I think 5.57, I think. There we go. And so it tracks these. And if you can actually look at, like, let me look at one of these. So the exam you just took, it shows you how much time it took you to finish the exam, you know, your earned level, how many you got correct, how many you got wrong. It also shows you each section, within each section, how many you got right and how many you got wrong. And so let's click on one that I got wrong. It gives you the solution. Usually there's a written solution as well as a video that you can watch. It tells you how much time you spent, and there's also comments from other people. So if other people have questions on that specific question, or you're confused about something, you can usually find that somebody has asked that question in here and usually find an answer. They have actual certified coaches that come in and answer people's questions. And so that's always super helpful to have. And they will label the question SOA if it's an actual SOA release question. And so that's also super helpful. You can also take quizzes. It tracks your quizzes and when you took them, and so on. And I think this was today earlier. I didn't get to finish that exam because I didn't plan correctly, but yes. So does anybody have any questions? Is there anything you'd like to see specifically in terms of kind of coaching actuaries, or any questions you have specifically, concerns? I know discussions, you can just learn a little bit more about the exams and general discussion and whatnot.
I'd like to know the cost of the coaching actuaries. What's the cost of it?
So if you go on their website, I know, so we have discount codes that you can use that will definitely reduce the price. So right now it says for, I think this is what, 6 months access to this, it would cost you getting, well, if you get the adapt plus the manual as a student, you're getting $221. But we also have a discount code that adds to whatever your student discount was. So it actually adds to that. And you probably, I need to verify because I haven't used the codes myself, because I get a complimentary subscription, but I think it's drastically lower because somebody used them a couple days ago and they told me that it's definitely in closer to 110, probably $120 if you're using this 6 month. You can do like a 30-day, I think, or 90 days, 3 months. I've used this one before and it's definitely much cheaper as well. So depending on what your kind of situation is, you can definitely let me know. Those codes are available to y'all as club members. So just send me an email, send me a message on the Discord or on the group me, and I'll be able to send those to you and anytime. But
so for the codes, how long are they? How long do they last? Is there like an expiration date to them?
So for y'all to be able to use them, I think they're only valid for this semester. So if you use it before the semester ends, then you'll be okay. Like your subscription will be able to stay past that. So you'll still be okay. But just for this semester. So if next semester, I think we're probably going to do that again, try to sign up for the program again. We'll have, I think, the same set of codes, but that just depends on us signing up again on it. But I'm definitely planning on doing that, but just this semester. And if you were in it last semester, if you used them last semester, then they're still the same codes.
All right. So would it be possible for you to put your email in the chat? I think I like to hit you over.
Give me a second. I know, yes, you can. This is my Gmail, gmail.com. And if you're in the Discord or the group me, you can also just send me a text there as well. But anybody got questions, I can show you all of these. There's also this crazy graphic. It'll show you like how you were doing, like when you have terrible days, like right here. And when you have regular great days, like right here and here, when you score really great. So it tracks all of those for you. It also tracks how many questions you've done. So like I've completed 630 questions. I don't think and I'm like at a 59% correct. I wish it would track like after a certain point, but you can't really do that. So it tracks from the for very first quiz you do and all of those. So and some of these questions do get, so let me just open up one of the, this one is better. So where some of the questions are, so, you know, this one where the difficulty is pretty high, and it gives you like on average, how much time people spend on each question, how much time you spent on the question, and those sorts of things. So it's usually pretty helpful just to gauge where you're at, and you know what questions, difficulty, your time, and things like that. But anybody got any other questions or something in the chat? Hey, thanks, Victor, for doing the link for the Discord. I know it's already 8:30, so feel free if you have to go somewhere. Feel free to.
Before let's I want to make one more comment, and then we can you can send do the wrapping up. But yeah, if anyone's interested in communicating with other people about the exam, or finding kind of people for support, on our Discord we have a space for actuarial chat and exam prep, which it's pretty new. But if we get more people to get involved with it, then it can really be a valuable resources, just to kind of help identify your fellow student who needs or could assist in help, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
definitely feel free, reach out if you have any kind of questions surrounding that. In that Discord, I usually take a look at if there's any messages in there once every day. So just feel free to do that.
And we do post actuarial related things. For example, the CAS, the Casualty Actuarial Society, has a summer program, and we share that resource as it only really applies to actuarial science people, as well as we put it in our emails and too when it's relevant. But it's just a really good place, so recommend it.
Yes, and thank you, Ray. I just saw the message in the chat, but thank you so much. Well, thank you all for being here. It was great, kind of getting ready to answer those questions. Thank you so much for staying. You actually stayed for the session as well. Thank you so much, and for being here. As well as Victor, thanks for recording the session as well.
All right, everyone, have a good night.